Most life insurance agents have a really tough time making it, especially when they're new and definitely if they have limited face-to-face sales experience. Even though final expense sales is definitely the easiest sale in the world, it's not any different. There's a lot of agent turnover, and probably I'd have to say about 80% of the agents that actually stick around and, well, in my opinion, are successful at selling final expense are still not making a six-figure income like those top producers that we all know and love. Guys, in this video, the top producer versus the final expense agent, I'm going to share with you the main differences between the two, and I'll probably be getting into pretty much I'm going to get into exactly what you can do to step up your game to the next level and become a top producing final expense agent. Coming up after this. I'm Douglas Massey, and you are the next top producer. Seriously, guys, there's no reason for you not to be. I mean, you don't have to be super talented, and you don't have to be an amazing closer to do this. First off, thanks for checking out our channel, and yes, this is when I'm going to ask that you give this video a big old thumbs up right now, guys, because you know, YouTube, they're going to keep playing our videos as long as they know you're watching. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, you should definitely do so now. We're putting out new training videos on a weekly basis. Now, if you click down on that little bell-looking thing that's down there next to the subscribe button, what we're going to do is notify you every single time that we put out a new video. If you're new to final expense sales, please watch this video and then check out our playlist called FE Training 101, which is, it's right there. You can come back to the video. After you watch this, you can come back to this part of the video and just click on the little sign up there, and you'll see a playlist that covers all the basics, pretty much everything that you're going to need to learn in order to sell final expense life insurance successfully. We want to thank you guys for watching our videos, so if you'll kindly hang around all the way to the end of the video, I'm going to show you how to get a copy of these awesome will kits. You got the Living Will and the Last Will and Testament, and both are great will kits that you can print out and leave with pretty much everybody that you sell if you'd like to, especially if you're new. And I would definitely suggest doing this if you're new, because they're really a good way to help you build value in the sale, so you're not just, you know, writing them up and then running out of there and leaving them with a brochure. First, let's talk about your typical final expense agent. Now, I'm pretty sure your typical agent is going to buy some leads. Usually, and this is not good, it's usually the cheapest ones they can find. Then they'll take the leads and, start knocking on doors with them, maybe even a couple of rounds of calls just to see if they can get a few appointments. They go out in the field 2 or 3 days per week, maybe spend, 6+ hours on those field days, pushing their ways into the prospect's homes so that they can get in a few presentations each day, which can, easily turn into maybe 2 or 3 sales. And then, they maybe take a couple days off and then go back and grind it out a little bit more while they try to get it in maybe another sale or 2 off of that same batch of leads. Eventually, what they'll do is, order some more leads and start the whole process over again. To me, this is a realistic description of an agent that's maybe at this level, and all they need to do is make some changes, maybe a few adjustments, and before you know it, they're at this level, on target to make more money than at least 90% of the entire workforce in the United States. So first off, if you're not at least doing the minimal amount of work that I just described, of working, at least a few days per week, you're going to need to get to that point. In other words, you need to get to here before you can get to there. In other words, you need to start working full time, because trust me, the top producers are working a lot more than just 40 hours per week. Believe me. When my wife Mariana and I first got into the business, we were door knocking leads full time, 4 or 5 days a week, 8, 10 hours per day. And when we eventually started to call the leads, to start setting appointments so that we could have set appointments, each day and, do the door knocking in between, we were working more like, I'd have to say, 60 plus hours per week. And let's say you're working full time and you would love to make the step towards making that six-figure income that you all hear us talking about. Here's what the top producers, the big-time final expense agents, are doing. First, they're working leads every single week. Yeah, the top producers are not just buying some cheap leads and working through them and then eventually ordering some more leads. But what they actually do is they work a specific amount of leads every single week, week in, week out, whether they have a bad week, a good week, an in-between week. They just keep ordering leads and keep working those leads every single week. Usually around 30 to 40 final expense direct mail leads. And yeah, they're actually spending around $1,000 or more each and every single week. Second, all the top producers that I've ever worked with or even met all have broken down their week to, what we call like the phone office days and then those hardcore field days. The year that I wrote over $400,000 of annualized premium, all final expense sales, I spent 3 days per week calling through the leads at least 6 to 8 times per day. Yeah, I didn't just dial 2 or 3 times, but the idea is to book up as many appointments as possible. So like Saturday, I would call for Monday, Tuesday, I would call for Wednesday, and Thursday, I would call for Friday. And you always want to spend at least one Saturday out in the field. Very, very important, because that's when you're going to catch those people that maybe you couldn't get during the week. Maybe they're working or something. So you got to switch it up. You got to switch up the schedule every 2 or 3 weeks at least. The third thing that I've noticed about all the top producers is that we usually don't have any reservations about distance or travel time. So if you got to drive 2 or 3 hours away in order to spend, 8 or 10 hours banging on doors, only to drive back home, that same 2 or 3 hours, whatever it takes to get home the same day, or even if they need to spend a couple of nights each week in a hotel, they'll do that. That's what we do. And they'll do that over and over because they know it works for them and that's what they're willing to do. We've got a producer in Florida, basically 3 to 4 times a month. He'll drive 3.5 hours from his home in Fort Lauderdale to Daytona, Florida. He'll spend a night or two in a hotel, meanwhile running appointments and door knocking leads like an animal while he's there. And then he'll drive another 2 hours up to Jacksonville, spend another day or two running leads out there doing the same thing, only to end up driving back home around 5+ hours during that week. Personally, when I was in the field full time, I used to have a 3-hour drive limit for travel days when I would, go back home the same day without having to sleep in a hotel, which was my, round trip in a day limit. Any drive that would be like further than maybe 3 hours and 15 minutes away, and I'd usually stay the night in a hotel. So on my long travel days, to avoid staying in a hotel, I would basically leave the house at like 6 in the morning, get to my first appointments around 8:30 or 9 a.m., run leads all day long, hitting the last appointments around 6 or 7 at night, and would then drive home that same day, which basically could be around 15+ hours for those travel days. And I would do that 2 or 3 times a week. And in case you're wondering why in the world would anyone need to drive so far to sell final expense, that's a good question. Some areas like Fort Lauderdale, for instance, are brutally difficult to sell in, while other cities like, Belle Glade, for instance, can be really, really easy to sell in, at least compared to those bigger, more metro cities. One of the things that agents on our sales team have access to is a training video that actually teaches them how to find the hot spots, those honey holes, those areas that are just better and easier to sell in compared to most, that are full of our typical final expense prospects, You know, people that are easier going, easier to close, nicer to deal with than the typical big city, know-it-all retirees that are approached by salespeople on an almost daily basis. Guys, for a copy of the last will and testament that I mentioned earlier in the video, along with the living will, you know, those will kits that we were talking about earlier, just shoot me an email at doug@ufesonline.com. If you'd like some information on joining our top producer final expense sales team, just email me at that same address. Remember, when you put the needs of your clients first, everything else is pretty much going to fall right into place. So let's get on out there and do something good for someone today. Happy hunting.